What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and we just got a new data slate update for Warhammer 40k. Huge poise changes were made across the breadth of the game, and while we didn't see any rules updates, it is going to change the face of the competitive metagame. So let's dive in and talk about the most improved factions. First, we're going to talk about a couple honorable mentions, factions that, while they did improve on the whole, didn't see many changes to their overall standing. Adeptus Mechanicus saw some changes to their lesser play units. Units like Castellan Robots, Scorpius Disintegrators, and Sidonian Scatros all got points cuts, but they also saw some increases to Agents of the Imperium that the faction typically relied on. So most of their lists are side grading or maybe even losing a couple of points. That said, in some builds that were focusing on units like the Onagers or Disintegrators, this is going to be transformative to the faction, but many of their units still remain very expensive for what they do. Belisarius Call saw the biggest decrease here, 30 points for him alone, but he's not really a profile that Adeptus Mechanicus needs, and as such, he's not really seeing play even at his newly reduced points cost. Leagues of Votann is also here. They didn't see any points increases at all. They did see a couple of very small points decreases. Hearthkin Warriors dropping is good for the faction. That will typically get them 10 to 20 points back for most of their builds, as well as Uthor the Destined getting a small discount as well. Neither of these are particularly transformative, just nice quality of life changes for the faction. Now, last but certainly not least, in honorable mentions here, I'm putting Thousand Suns. This is probably one of the most controversial changes that we've seen in this Munitorum Field Manual update. While the faction's been kind of a roller coaster ride this season, they were doing fairly well towards the end. However, that being the case, saw points cuts across many of their units. These include lesser played units like Mauler Fiends, Vindicators, and Scarab Occult Terminators, but also some of their staples. Demon Princes, Hellbrutes, and Thousand Suns Cultists all saw occasional competitive play, and those getting decreases definitely helps the faction. However, they also saw two of their most important enhancements in their Cult of Magic detachment go up by 10 points apiece, meaning that most Thousand Suns lists stayed the same. Their points just moved around, didn't actually increase or decrease at all. Some Thousand Suns lists lost 5 to 10 points, some of them gained 5 to 10 points. Overall, mostly just a side grade for the faction. Now, that being said, let's talk about actually improved factions, starting with Genestealer Cults. Now, given the performance of Genestealer Cults this season, I kind of expected them to see more love in this field manual update. They got some buffs, but it wasn't hugely transformative. Aberrants and Achilles Ridge Runners are both very commonly played units and got points decreases. Goliath Rock Grinders and Goliath Trucks also getting decreases, the Truck specifically seeing occasional play in competitive lists as a delivery system for demolition charges in the early game, being able to drop off demolition charge equipped Acolyte hybrid units. And that all is very nice for Genestealer Cults. They're probably going to get 20 to 30 points more to play with in their lists. Not world-shattering buffs, but a little quality of life. Space Marines also saw a host of changes, with a little bit of an asterisk. The Black Templars subfaction specifically saw massive nerfs almost across the board. Another round of nerfs for what is probably the best performing Space Marine subfaction. Blood Angels 2 also saw some massive increases. They were doing incredibly well this past season, and many of the core units to their Sons of Sanguinius archetype got increases. However, they also saw some units like Sanguinary Guard get decreases as well. So it wasn't all bad for Blood Angels, just mostly so. The Ironstorm Spearhead specifically also saw some nerfs, specifically to its enhancements, Adept of the Omnissiah and Master of Machine War, both getting a points increase, as well as Stormraven gunships that we usually saw in 2s or 3s in some varieties of Ironstorm Spearhead builds. Eliminator Squads also got a points hike as well, kind of for no discernible reason. They saw occasional play in Ironstorm Spearheads and in some other detachments as either utility units or using them with an impulsor to embark and disembark and fire their weapons multiple times thanks to the firing deck rules. But on the whole, they did see some points cost reductions to many of their occasionally played units. We saw things like Intercessors with Jump Packs getting a points cost reduction. That's huge. Incursor Squads, Hellblaster Squads, Brutalis Dreadnoughts, Vindicators, and, after my own heart, Tactical Marines, all getting decreases, which are units that see fairly wide play. Space Wolves also saw some decreases to Wolfguard Terminators and Scouts. To be fair, not data sheets that we saw very often, but that is nice for them. Dark Angels are probably one of the biggest beneficiaries of this. They finally seem to have what are actual points values for the new Codex supplement. They came out with the existing points values for the units in their supplement when it was released. However, many of those units got debuffed, and now they are actually paying less points for them. Lionel Johnson, Deathwing Knights, Deathwing Terminators, as well as, importantly, Inner Circle Companions, all getting pretty hefty points decreases commensurate with their lowered power level. Whether you see these units, I'm not sure. I definitely think that the 90-point price point for Inner Circle Companions looks a lot more appetizing than their previous points cost, which was close to 30 points more expensive. But it is still nice to see that these guys are getting discounted for being less powerful than they were before their supplement. Next up, we've got World Eaters. World Eaters saw huge cuts to many of their most offensively oriented vehicles, Mauler Fiends and Hellbrutes, both of which are played fairly often in select World Eaters builds, not the more standard ones, but some World Eaters compositions do take these units. Did see some hefty reductions. World Eaters Terminators also getting a points cost reduction, as well as their base infantry, Jackals and Khorne Berserkers, both getting a reduction as well, which is just going to give almost every World Eaters list more points to play with, because basically every single World Eaters composition is going to be taking at least those units. I do think at their updated points value, Hellbrutes and Mauler Fiends definitely deserve a looking at in the World Eaters faction. They are fairly well statted for their cost and have some incredible synergies with the World Eaters army rules, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those guys see some play in the upcoming season. Now we're moving into some big territory here. Tyranids saw some massive buffs. While they did see a very small points increase to Gargoyle units, which are played basically in every Tyranid army for their ability to score and screen your opponent, many of the offensive or support-oriented Tyranid units got points decreases. This seems like a concerted effort to make the faction a little bit more aggressive, since they have been kind of a passive scoring army for almost the entirety of the edition since their codex came out in the first wave. This included massive points cuts to aggressive units like Tyranid Warriors, Zoanthropes, and Barbgaunts, as well as support-oriented units. The Swarmlord going down 30 points, Psychophages, Hiveguard, Lictors, and Tyrant Guard all also going down points. While not all of these were seen in every list, they are basically fringe playable in many different Tyranid detachments, and getting points cuts makes all those detachments look a little bit more appetizing. And lastly, for the most improved factions in this field manual update, we've got Chaos Space Marines. These guys were doing incredibly poorly this season, since they're probably over nerf after their exceptional performance in the final season of 2023, but it looks like things are going to be turning around for the faction with some hefty points cuts on many of their staple units. Units like Cultists, Legionaries, and Chaos Bikers are all seen in most Chaos Space Marine lists and all got points cost reductions. We also saw some other lesser played units like Chaos Terminators, Vindicators, Cypher, interesting, a lone operative guy for a little bit cheaper, as well as Demon Princes, Mauler Fiends, and Venom Crawlers all getting cuts, alongside a little bit more aggressive units like Havocs, Hellbrutes, Possessed, and Raptors. Specifically, units like Legionaries, Hellbrutes, the Possessed and Raptors that I mentioned at the end are all played fairly widely, especially alongside Chaos Bikers, who are good for scoring points. Most Chaos Space Marine lists are already running many of these in duplicates, and so most of those lists are also going to get points cost reductions, giving them some more points to play with, which is a huge boon for the faction that's been struggling exceptionally over the last 3 months. And with that, those are all the most improved factions for this April data slate. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about these points changes and what your faction will be in the coming season. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Thanks as well to everybody who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subscribers. All you people are amazing, and I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.